and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that loves to double the spooky this time of year. And tonight we'll be exploring the subject of mimics, ghosts or entities that pretend they are you or your loved one. I'm your haunted host, Jennifer, a spirit medium and a teller of ghost stories. And after the creepy stories, stick around as I share my work as a medium with you and my latest podcast guest. Then linger near the séance table with me as I request a message to be conjured for someone listening to the podcast. And since you're attending, this message could be for you. That's later on in the podcast. But first, the malicious mimics. The ghosts are calling you in your own voice right now. This has happened to me multiple times, more so when I was younger, but every now and then it will happen again. It used to use my mother's voice, then it switched to my fiancé's voice. I remember one instance when I was younger. It was pretty late, around 11 p.m. at night. I heard my mother screaming my name as if she was hurt or needed help urgently. My blood ran ice cold, and of course I ran full speed into her room and burst through the door, only to find her sound asleep and completely oblivious to me crashing through her bedroom door. I just stood there, completely and utterly lost for words. I've heard her voice yell my name quite a number of times, only to discover she's either asleep, reading quietly, watching TV, or even worse, not even at home at all. Since my partner moved in, I've heard his voice a number of times, except it's never him. It's even happened while he sat right next to me. I heard his voice. I asked him to repeat himself because I didn't quite catch what he said, only to have him tell me he never said anything at all. I always have this horrible fear that one day I'll hear either my mother's or my partner's voice shout my name, and I'll come running, only to bump into something that's not and never has been human. The following events took place when I was around 15 years old, and I lived at home with my parents and younger sister. My parents had bought homes to renovate and flip, so my sister and I thought this was just another adventure. We had settled in and were there for maybe a few months before I started experiencing whispers. The voice would mimic either my sister or my mom in such a convincing way that I would always reply and not realize until afterwards that it was not them. It would only whisper my name, nothing more, nothing less. I would answer and wait for a reply, but nothing. My mom and sister were always sound asleep. Perhaps the most startling incident happened to both my sister and me. I was asleep when she suddenly tapped me on the shoulder and woke me up. As soon as I opened my eyes and I looked at her, I knew that something had happened. She was terrified. She told me that she had gone into the kitchen to get a glass of water and saw our father sitting on the sofa, upright. She had called out to him, but he didn't answer or even move. She began to feel uneasy and ran to get me. I was not happy about investigating, but part of me thought that Dad might just have been asleep. We slowly walked back into the kitchen and then over towards the sofa. I don't know why we didn't just turn on the light. I know for a fact I wasn't thinking straight, having just woken up. The moon was bright that night, so as we got closer, I saw what I can only describe as a dark shadow sitting perfectly upright on our couch. It certainly looked like my father, but I instantly knew it wasn't Dad. But I called out anyway. My sister and I stood there watching for what felt like a lifetime, and then suddenly a wave of emotion came over me, as if whatever was sitting there in front of us was evil, and in that split second, its head began to turn. We ran for our lives back to my room, locked the door, and turned on every light. We couldn't sleep at all that night. We told our parents in the morning, still hoping that somehow it was just our father, but he assured us that he had not left his room all night. Today, I still regret not turning the light on and knowing for sure what I was looking at. But at the same time, I think that maybe it's for the best. I'm glad I don't know. Early in the year, I woke to my son saying, "Mom," in an urgent tone. Normally, I can only hear him from my room if he's close by. So when I got up to check to see what was wrong, I couldn't find him. I checked his room, and he was asleep. I mentioned this to my boyfriend, and he just laughed about it and thought I was dreaming. A couple of months ago, it happened again, but this time it sounded like my younger son. A toddler screamed, crying, like he was in distress. I got up to check on him, turned on the lights, and he was fast asleep. I checked on my other son, and he was also sleeping. I mentioned it again to my boyfriend, but he didn't think much about it. Last month, it happened again. I woke to my son saying, "What's that?" Again, I checked on him, and he was asleep. I went back to bed and was woken again to what sounded like yelling. But after investigating, I discovered everyone was still asleep. I did tell my boyfriend the next day, and again he just thinks I'm dreaming. Last week, I came home from work. Casually, my boyfriend said, when he was napping during the day, he heard me say his name. He said it sounded urgent, which was a detail I never told him about before. Now I'm wondering if he'll believe me next time. My sister and brother-in-law just had a baby and moved into a rental home. And I was asked to babysit my nephew one evening. I came over and my sister went over some details and mentioned she had a load of baby clothes in the dryer, She asked if I had time to take out the clothes and fold them. I agreed, and they left to enjoy their evening. A little while later, I heard that the dryer was done. So I scooped up my nephew and placed him in his crib. I went to the laundry room and took the clothes out and folded them. I placed all the clothes in a basket and placed the basket on the changing table. I took my sleeping nephew out of his crib and placed him in his bassinet in the living room. I watched TV quietly for a while until I heard a loud bang come from the nursery. I quietly made my way over to see what made the noise, and I opened the nursery door. The laundry basket I had placed on the changing table was now on the other side of the room, on the floor, upside down. The neatly folded baby clothes looked as though they had been tossed around. I quickly picked up the basket and the clothes and brought them back to the living room to refold. I was confused by the whole situation, but I didn't want to ruin my sister's night out. I decided not to even mention what happened. A few months went by, and my sister asked if I could babysit again. I agreed, and this time out, my mom had joined my sister and brother-in-law for dinner. My nephew had been napping prior to their departure, and my sister said he would need to be fed when he woke up. He woke up 30 minutes after they left, and I brought him into the kitchen, and I placed him in his high chair as I prepared his bottle. Suddenly, I heard my mom yelling angrily from somewhere in the house, "Angelia, come here now!" I yelled back, "Just a second, I'm in the middle of making a baby bottle." Again, I heard my mom call out, "Angela, come here now!" But now it sounded like she was somewhere else in the house. My mom, she wasn't even supposed to be at home. Frustrated and confused, I yelled back, "What's going on? 1 second!" I picked up my nephew and went into the master bedroom, and I walked into an empty room. I looked around and my mother was nowhere in the bedroom. I looked in the nursery, and that was empty as well. I looked throughout the rest of the house, guest bedroom, bathroom, the garage, and eventually checked the driveway for cars, only seeing my own car. I came back inside, grabbed my phone, and called my mom. I asked her if she had come back or had forgotten something, and my mom had answered confused, "No, why?" she asked me. To which I responded, "I just heard you a moment ago. You sounded upset." She responded, "I don't know what you're talking about. We've been on the road for over 30 minutes now." My stomach immediately sank. Once again, I didn't want to ruin their evening and just told her it might have been the television. After I hung up, the doorbell rang. I paused for a moment and decided to look out the peephole. No one was outside. I opened the door to peek out to see if there were any cars in the driveway, and it was still just my car. No one was visibly outside, and from where the house was located, you could clearly see the street in both directions. I never mentioned any of this to my sister until she was getting ready to move. As I was helping her pack, I noticed she had moved my nephew's crib into the master bedroom. I asked her why she had moved it, and what she told me was completely unexpected. She said around Halloween she had bought a black light. Just needing a random outlet to try it with, she plugged it into the nursery room. The room instantly lit up, with what she described as a huge, concentrated stain in the middle of the room with handprints going up the walls. She immediately just felt very uncomfortable and moved the crib into her bedroom that very night. I told her what had happened the first time I watched my nephew, and she opened up about the strange things that happened in the house, and that was the main reason she was moving. She had heard strange voices in the house as well, including her own voice. She said the landlord offered to lower the rent if they signed a year lease. She said the landlord told her he was having issues keeping tenants in the rental, and her family was the one who had stayed the longest. She refused the offer and moved. I always wondered if anything happened in that home, and I do wish I had investigated the history. I absolutely hate that whatever was in that home mimicked our voices. Hello, my dear spooky friend. Do you have a paranormal experience you would like to share? Submit your ghost stories to be read on this podcast. I love sharing true ghost stories, and yours could be among them. Email me your story at speaknow@italktoghosts.com. Let's be spooky together. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest this evening is Callie. Callie, welcome to the podcast and your reading. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
You reached out because of a message from the spirits that resonated with you from back in August, I believe it was. And what I love about this is, yet again, no one else reached out about that reading. And I always find that really fascinating that like this was meant for you. And that's just absolutely fabulous. Now, the woman who was coming through in that reading, I am feeling her here as well, but I also want to address a gentleman who is coming through that, and there's time for everyone, right? He is giving me more father-grandfather type vibes. Do you have a grandfather that passed away?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. He is coming through. First thing I saw with him, he was holding a little model of something, like a little train or a little car. And it was giving me a sense of childhood for him, that I feel like his sense of being sentimental was coming through, and that he was pulling from his childhood just a small little token of something that meant something to him. And he seems a little gentle in nature, the type of person who would smile first and then after thinking and then talk to you. Does this line up for you with your grandfather?
My actual grandfather passed away quite a few years ago. But recently, November of last year, my quote unquote dad, he was like a stand-in dad for me. His name is Buddy. When you said he was the kind to smile and think and just kind of take in everything you said, because at first I thought it might have been my grandfather from my mom's side. But that doesn't sound like him. But Buddy was the kind of person who would listen to all my antics and all my crazy stuff, and just, he would smile, he would nod, he'd give me his 2 cents if I wanted it, and he was great fun to have around. But we lost him recently.
Yeah, very nurturing and supportive, gentle, a gentleman, you know. Did he have that other generation in his life as well that he would identify as a grandfather, or are they maybe okay?
So he did have children of his own, but he adopted a bunch of us.
Sure.
He was a karaoke DJ, and so all of his karaoke children became his daughters and sons, and my children became his grandchildren. And so, like, yeah, he definitely had that father grandfather vibe, and like had full white beard and long white hair, and just, so definite. And when you brought up the car, he was a mechanic. He did the Air Force. He could work on cars like nobody's business. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was something in his childhood that he would build model cars, because like I think that was like a lifelong thing for him.
Yeah. Yeah. When you say that, it's kind of like, ever since I was a kid, I liked this, and it kind of shaped his life a bit. And it's funny that you brought up music, because at one point I was hearing some loud music. But I also kind of feel, no one ever comes in by themselves. And I do feel like your natural grandfather is in there as well. Is he of like Eastern European descent, like Polish German type of thing?
Yep.
Okay. Because I was hearing like polka as well. And it was just that vibe was coming in for him.
Yeah. My grandfather on my mom's side, his side of the family is from Germany, Poland. I think we even have the Czech Republic in there somewhere. And one of the things my grandfather loved to do was dance. And he and my mom used to do things like the foxtrot and the polka and like all those fancy dances that they used to do way back when. And so, yeah, that's Grandpa.
So he's definitely here with you too. Your dad really wanted to offer support for you. He's coming in with big hugs and still that gentle nature. He just like wants to give you your space to talk first, but he was one to really respect emotions.
He was.
Whether they were his or yours, he felt that emotions were like petals on a flower. How people felt and how you made them feel was important and should be respected. I'm just feeling this outpouring of support for you right now in the gentlest of ways. Very kind man.
Yeah.
Yeah, great smile.
Yeah, he did. He was always like that. There was a while where, like, after I moved away, like, we lost touch, and you know how things go. You get caught up in your own lives. And when he passed, I hadn't been able to talk to him in a while, and we didn't have like a falling out or anything. Nothing bad happened. I just got really caught up in my own life. I mean, I knew he was having health issues, but I didn't know he was going to be leaving us soon. And, he would text me on my birthday and, check in every now and then and just see how his grandkids were doing, how I was doing. And it didn't matter how much time had passed. He would always he would be understanding. And I'm pretty sure on several occasions I've said things not, just especially when I was going through a particular chaotic time, like that was just not hurtful, but would elicit emotion, from somebody. And he would just be there and he would listen. And, again, it didn't matter what crazy thing came out of my mouth. He was just like, you have your crazy moment. It's okay. Go sing about it. And
I feel like he's bringing in that energy for you now still. That it's like, don't worry about it. Everything is okay. And when you think of him, feel the love and send him the love. Don't hang back with any sort of analysis of what could have been or what didn't happen, because he certainly doesn't want that for you now. And I feel like him coming through first, this was super important that you knew this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let us talk about the woman who is coming in. with the spirituality. She feels like a mentor type and a nurturing type.
Mm-hmm.
So much knowledge going on there. Did her voice carry?
Yeah.
Including her laugh? Did she have quite a powerful laugh?
Yeah. It wasn't like an obnoxious laugh. It was just very full and very round. When she was laughing, it just sounded through the air.
It feels like it could reverberate, like you feel that in you. And just great energy could radiate outward in waves.
Yes.
She's coming through like a very bright light. And she is saying that you have many gifts that help and change people and affect the world.
That's what people tell me. Whether or not I always admit it, it's a different story. I'm a teacher. I've taught like literally all the age levels, and my main goal whenever I am teaching somebody, it's not about the knowledge. I mean, it is on one level, but on the root level, it's about helping this person to grow to become the human being that they're meant to be, to put out goodness and support for them so they can in turn do that with the world. And I always, tell my students, I'm like, I'm here to, help shape you to be a dignified human being. Like the subject matter comes second. Like if we're not doing kindness in our classroom and our respect, then no one's going to learn anything. And so I treat every single student I have, regardless of age level, in that way.
She's saying to me that you think she made everything look easy.
She did.
But she wants you to understand that to others, how they see you, you make it look easy. You make it easy for them. You do. You do. You do.
Oh, goodness.
She sees how you can get caught up in the comparison of things. But we each have our own light and our own gifts that we bring to the table and to others and to other people's hearts. And she also wants to remind you that magic can be subtle and that sometimes we can't feel it or see it ourselves.
As a Virgo person in general, I can be very self-critical, and especially when it comes to her, because and a lot of us in the community that I live in, we all agree that she was a staple in our community and nobody can ever fill her shoes. And the best we can do is carry on her legacy. How do we make that legacy continue? Because she was something. And it was just like, I understand on a logical level that I can't recreate what she did. That I can take what she taught me and spin it my own way. The hard part is I really wish she was still around, because I want people to experience what I experienced with her. And so it's just that's the hard part is when you talked about the comparison, and like when especially like magic on a little level, when my maternal grandmother passed a couple years ago, I took a deep dive into the world of the paranormal and the spiritual. And one of the things that had driven me crazy for the longest time is I know when energies or spirits are around me, I feel them, but I can't see them. And it used to drive me nuts that I couldn't physically see them. I'm like, you manifest for other people. Why aren't you manifesting for me? It used to like drive me absolutely bonkers. And I've had to learn a couple life lessons. Like there are many forms of seeing, it doesn't have to be like a physical thing. But, just like stuff like that, she knows. She's always known. Like, she was always able to pinpoint stuff that was going on with me, even if I didn't say things out loud.
She's so proud of you. And she thinks you're amazing. And you do bring your own heart into it and your own magic. And your own soul. You honor her, and she's showing me love pouring into you and love pouring out of you. Just have that connection open, and you don't need anything else. Let it flow. Surrender to it and add your own flair to it. That comparison game, that's a dangerous game, right? You don't want to be there. So just catch yourself with that self-critique, because you have so much to give. And you do. You give it, and it's impactful in so many ways, and it's just so important.
I will keep that in mind. Thank you.
I do have a few messages for you. They are: daydream about plans, even if you feel blocked at the time. Okay. Daydream about the best possible goal and you doing it, and feel it and dream it. Dreaming is big when it comes to this, even if you're feeling blocked right now. Okay. Because I feel like that'll help get you through it in a way, as well as it'll help manifest it.
Okay.
Picture it to manifest it. Yeah, and I said pour love into things. So pour love into things, not frustration.
When you teach middle school, that's really hard.
Fair enough.
But that's a very fair message. That's very fair.
And I think this is coming from your dad. Get in touch with your younger self. That is key somehow. That you had a whimsy to you when you were really young, that your critical mind is kind of dampening a bit. Like, no, you need to not be, So if that makes sense to you, get in touch with that whimsy again, and that daydreaminess and the magic. Let your heart lead, and you'll get there, and it'll help you shift into that heart space. So does that resonate for you right now? Can you connect with that message?
Yeah. Especially the get in touch with my whimsy and younger self, because when you become an adult, and when you have to lead a bunch of children every day, you just sometimes you forget your own playfulness and your own magic, and it's more like, are you all following the rules? Are you all like on task? And it's hard because, you're constantly like multitasking, and
I'm hearing you're acting older than you are, and stop acting older than you are. You're not an old biddy.
It's actually funny that you say that, because like I've been telling people lately, like I just turned 39, and when I smile, I can, or rather whenever I see pictures of myself, I can literally see like the crown starting to come out. And I don't take that as a bad thing, but
Sure.
I was just like, I can see her. And so for that to be like, no, you're not there yet.
You're not there yet. Well, thank you so much. This has been so lovely, and I can feel the love. They are so close to you. They are absolutely close to you at all times, and they came through so clear and so quickly. It's just a joy to be able to meet with you and interact, and just an honor to speak for them a little bit.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was very heart fulfilling. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Before we go, do you have a personal ghost story that you would like to share?
I do. I have 2 of them, if that's okay.
Listener ghost story.
After my grandmother passed, and I started, trying to connect with my ancestors who were on the other side, my mom, or my grandfather would come through a lot. First time he ever came through, I was in the middle of this meditation, and I was by myself in the house, and this house that we lived in had weird activity around it. We never had anything super crazy happen, but it was just like, you kind of felt uneasy sometimes. You never really wanted to look in the mirror when you went into the bathroom if it was like dark. It just kind of had, it was a rented house. But anyway, so I'm by myself. My daughter's at school, my husband's at work, and I'm sitting there thinking about, you know, my people on the other side, and all of a sudden I hear this loud bang in the middle of the hallway, and it's coming from the other room, and both cats were outside too. And so I was just like, what was that? And I go over to investigate, and I'm walking really slowly. I was like, please don't tell me somebody has been in my house. And I noticed one of the pictures fell, and it was a picture of my mom and I and my son when he was really little. And as soon as I picked it up, I just heard the song, I just called to say I love you. And immediately I knew that was my grandfather, because he was big. And it's interesting that both my quote unquote dad and my grandfather, both of them were singers, both of them were big into karaoke, and I knew that was him. And I was just like, you prankster, because like that's what he used to do. I was like, you scared the mess out of me, couldn't you have just come into my meditation? And so, and then later on, this was probably like a couple weeks later, my mom when she sees dragonflies, she connects that with my grandfather and sometimes my grandmother. And I was out watering my garden, and in my rosemary, I had a couple pots of rosemary, but I had this big stick, just random stick that you find sometimes, and I had it sticking up in the pot. And this dragonfly flew on it. And I was just like, hi, Grandpa. And, you know, I got really close to it just to make sure it wasn't going to like go anywhere. And if it wasn't just like some random dragonfly, you know how it happens. And I got like super close and wouldn't move for anything. And it just stayed there. And I got to, when I see their signals, I'll talk to them like they're, you know, physically there. And I asked him, I was just like, Grandpa, why the dragonfly? Like, why not come back as, you know, something else, you know? And the dragonfly flew away then, and I squatted down to pick something up, and this stink bug comes flying right at me, lands exactly where the dragonfly was. And the reason that's funny, and this is going to sound a bit crude, but my grandfather, like I said, he was a prankster, and he used to do the pull my finger all the time. So the fact like this stink bug just comes and flies in my face, and he's just like, all right, here you go.
Exactly.
I was like, Grandpa,
exactly.
what am I going to do with you?
Yeah, I totally get the message. Would you prefer this?
Right. And I was just like, nah, dragonfly's great. Thanks. No stink bugs needed.
Oh, I love it. Oh, wonderful stories. Thanks again. This has just been a treat.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this. I've listened to the podcast quite a bit, and I had always wondered if somebody would come through for me, and after about a year they did. So I'm very thankful.
Would you like a free spirit reading with me and record your reading for the podcast? Sign up for your chance to be selected by visiting italktoghosts.com/guest. And as an added bonus, if you don't want to leave your reading up to chance, I'll let you in on a secret. There's a discount offer to book a private session with me, so you can book a date and time for certain. Visit italktoghosts.com/guest for more details. I can't wait to meet you. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. I have a message from the spirits this evening, so thank you for joining me around my séance table. Tonight I have my little mini cauldron, and I have in it some incense of mugwort, mullein, and lavender. So as the smoke rises, I imagine these herbs and elements gathering and focusing our energy on spirit communication. I have with me tonight someone's friend from college. he is showing me that he was quite the prankster and jokester. He loved humor and would often be either telling jokes, laughing, or playing harmless, good-natured pranks. He's showing me that there is quite the story about a fish. And if this message is for you, I would love for you to reach out and tell me the exact details of this story. He was going to school for trumpet. He was a great trumpet player, really creative with music. He's also showing me that on the inside, he had a lot of heaviness, and it's pointing towards his family back home. Difficult upbringing. He learned at a really young age to be terribly self-critical, and he coped with all of that with humor. I think that you had an idea, but he just never opened up and shared, He kept it internal. And even now, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. That's not the important thing. He just really wants to pass along that love of life and that contagious energy that he brought to your friendship. His message for you tonight is he is certainly proud of you and the adult that you have become, but he also wants you to continue to celebrate and be silly. Of course. I wouldn't be surprised if there was something currently in your life worth celebrating, and I think he's cheering you on as well. Don't get in your own head too much, because he completely understands that, and let your heart lead the way sometimes. Just be jovial, have a sense of humor with things, don't be too serious. And he just wants you to live the fullest life you can. He sees that you have kids now and just wants to encourage you to meet them on that childlike level and enjoy life, because kids can lead you in that direction, and it's a wonderful thing to share together. I think I'm going to leave it at that. So if this message connects for you, I would love to hear about it. Thank you. Listen to I Talk to Ghosts for an atmospheric chill and to never feel alone, knowing the spirits are always around you. The autumn months are the perfect time to share and recommend this podcast to your ghoulish friends. Thank you for supporting the show and sharing the spooky. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this spooky episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed the spirit work I've shared with you this evening, as well as those tales of mimics. Have you ever had a ghost mimic you or a loved one? I would love to know about it. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.